Get it in. Just need a little extra space, blanket or something like that. I put 2 mats down, but I'm not sure it's going to work because they like to slide away from each other, but hopefully I can make it work. And there will be a segment here where we're going to need just, we're going to be doing some bridges, not too many. But if you have a blanket under your feet, it might slide. So yeah, it looks like you just have your mat. That'll be good. All right, let's begin in a fully reclined position with arms and legs wide like a starfish. So your arms are going to reach kind of either out or maybe even more up. And then the legs will be a little wider than the hips. And let's find our seat muscles or glutes and just give them a good squeeze. You'll feel the pelvis rise just a little bit. And then relax the glutes. When you relax the glutes, notice if your low back arches just a little bit. It's your pelvis moving back to your natural position. Again, we'll squeeze the glutes. The pelvis might level out a little bit more. The low back might descend just slightly towards the ground. And then release that. 2 more times. Strong hug from your backside. Take an inhale breath. And then exhale, release it. Last one, hug the glutes. Take a slow inhalation through your nose. And as you release the breath, release the contraction. Right arm and left leg are going to engage or reach or squeeze or whatever it is you want to do. So I'm thinking of reaching my left toes further away and reaching my right arm in the opposite direction on that diagonal line. And I am squeezing my left glutes. And then you can relax that and do the opposite side. Right leg reaches, left arm reaches, and maybe we get a right side glute squeeze. Now we're just going to alternate here. It doesn't matter how you are breathing, just pay attention to it. Make it fairly intentional, relaxed. There's no need to make it overly long or drawn out, but if that makes you feel calm, then you can do it that way. I find myself inhaling on the effort and exhaling on the softening. Complete at least 1 more cycle on each side. And then 1 leg at a time, bring your heels a little closer to your bum. Bring your arms straight up over your shoulders, hovering vertically. And you can just let your wrists relax here. And then send your legs up as well. So our struggling bug position, the knees can stay bent this whole time. We're just going to work on mobilizing the smaller joints, the toes, the fingers, and the wrists and the ankles. So you can do any kind of combination there that feels nice. Noticing all those little angles you can make with each of those joints. Maybe curling the toes like you're coming over a perch. And then drawing toes back to your nose. Splaying the fingers out. Counter that by making a strong fist. And then give your arms a break for a second, just rest them to the ground. And we're going to make a swimming motion with the legs, the lower legs basically, in rotation. So you're letting the knees bend and then sweeping the feet away from each other. You're going to get a little internal hip rotation when you do that. And then from that downward swoop, you'll create an arc up with the toes. Yeah, just like that. Notice neutral curves of the back, maybe just a little bit of anterior core containment so the front ribs stay nestled back and down. Let's see if we can spin those rotations the other direction. Out and up first, and then down and inward to your midline. And then plant your feet. We're going to do something similar with the arms. So start with your arms up towards the ceiling again. Bend your elbows and then push your hands through the middle and up. So you're rotating the lower arm bones mostly. There might be a little action at the shoulder. It feels like kind of a backward swimming motion. And then reverse that. Fingers come towards the face, then we scoop the hands in and out and away. You could make that movement a little wider, pulling your arms towards you, your hands towards you, and then swooshing them away. And then release your hands back down to the ground. Keep those feet flat with your knees bent. Pause here and move into some micro pelvic tucks and tilts. Rolling on the sacral bone, noticing the influence in the low back from your pelvis. When the pelvis tips forward, the low back might lift off a little bit. Just find that extension. The back core contracts. And as you tuck under with your pelvis, the low back imprints and that tailbone could curl up just a little bit. Last two. Heel toe your feet out just a little wider so that they're for sure wider than your hips. And then let your knees taper over to the right side so it feels like our windshield wiper position, but we're going to hold this for a little bit. And maybe just hover in and out of it ever so slightly with the lower body. So the left hip is in our internally rotated position. Couple more little soft bounces, not going for deep range of motion here, just looking for that first edge sensation. With your left leg still turning in and your knees still pointing to the right, take your left arm and reach it up a little bit further on a diagonal line away from your shoulder. And then you're going to roll just the left leg slightly outward and pull down with your arm and wrinkle up the left side of your waist a little bit. It's almost like you're doing a side body crunch and trying to bring your left elbow down by your hip, but it doesn't have to go that far. And then inhale, turn that leg back in, reach your left arm away. Exhale, find that little side body connection as you pull the arm down and the hip open. We'll just keep going like this with our breath. Inhale for the reach away and the turning in. Exhale for the active side body connection. 2 more times. Beautiful. Come back towards center. Lay your hands on your ribs. You can bring your feet in a little bit closer again and then just let your knees touch in the middle. Take some slow, calming breaths through your nose. Bringing softness to the muscles around your eyes and forehead and your jaw, and letting those shoulders fall back towards the earth. Once again, expand your arms out to a T. Work your feet out to that wide step. Rotate the legs now so that the knees are pointing more towards the left side, and your right knee feels like it's reaching for the front left corner of your mat. Potentially on the inside of your right foot now. Observe the front of the right hip, even into the quads. You might feel a little stretch here. Changing the angle of the right arm to be now more diagonal, reaching away slightly upward when that right hip is turning crossbody. This is going to be our inhale breath. Exhaling, let that right knee open a little or a little bit more and start to drag the right arm down. A little bit of a crunch on that right side. And then slip back into your breath rhythm, combining the movement in. Inhale for the lengthening stretch. Exhale for that side body action. Last 2 or 3. Return to neutral, hands to the ribs or the belly, feet can come in a little bit, knees touch. Checking back in with the waves of your spine and the back side of your low ribs, trying to get that area just a little bit closer to the ground without any force. Now you're going to turn to one side. I'm going to be on my left side just so that I can face you for this first bit, but you can turn either way. I'll try to be good about referring to top bottom instead of left right. Bottom arm can for now rest underneath your ear or the side of your head. Let's bring the knees forward of the hips so it feels a little bit like a chair pose position or just like you're sitting into a chair. I like my heels a little further away from my body, but I don't think that matters too much. And then we're going to take this top hand to the hip and just draw that top hip slightly back so it feels like your thigh bone's pulling towards the wall behind you. And then let that right knee slide forward, the top knee slide forward of the bottom leg. So it feels a little bit like the legs are just sliding back and forth, kind of like a scissor action. And there will be some influence here from the pelvis to the spine, and that can travel up as much as you want. In other words, you could really start to rotate the chest a little bit if you wanted to. I'm keeping mine pretty relaxed. And if it feels like your neck wants to roll along as well, feel free to do that. But think about driving and initiating the slide from the pelvis and the femur on that top leg. Two more times, gliding beyond the bottom leg, drawing back behind the bottom leg. Last one. As you complete that last cycle, just find the neutral stacking of the legs. You're going to keep your top arm hand on your hip and try to pull your elbow up and a little bit forward. It might feel like kind of an awkward position for your shoulder. And then you're going to try to pin that right arm behind you, drawing your elbow not just back, but also thinking down towards the floor. And then pull the elbow up so the wrist is going to bend. And then sweep it back, squeezing the shoulder blade towards your spine. Handful more of those. Shoulder blade sweeps away. And then a little hug squeeze in. Final 3. 2. Last one. Now that top arm can just circle, kind of like a clockwise motion or counterclockwise motion. Doesn't have to be overly large path. You could keep your arm bent the whole time. You could mix it up. In terms of how your upper arm is rotated, you could also vary that. I always like to turn it in as I go behind, but you might feel a bigger stretch on the front side if you keep that palm open as you go back. Just the arm for a couple more rotations or movements. With your bottom arm now, let's sweep it out in front of us. Your head's going to hover off the ground for part of this movement, and then it might drop down and roll for the rest of it. Top arm's going to reach beyond the bottom. We've done this before, but then we're going to create an arc. And even looking up at that hand, reach up over your head. Start to roll the back of your skull to the ground and take your chest open as your top arm reaches to the wall behind you, and then reverse that. Maybe the eyes follow that hand like an arc all the way up and around. Lift your head, reach top arm beyond the bottom, and try again. It's kind of like a 3/4 of a clock. Going out to the shoulder height when you go to the reach behind and coming back. So I guess it's more of a half clock. Let's say from 3 to 9 with this top arm. The breathing can just be really natural, simple, even relaxed. When you get to that open position this next time, lay the top arm shoulder as close to the mat as you can get it without forcing, and then bend that elbow and think of snuggling it down back behind your ribs just a little bit. And then reach it up just slightly away from you on a diagonal. And once again, glide that right shoulder or top shoulder down and squeeze like you're rowing. 3 more like that. Reach away, get long on that top side, and then a little contraction for the back of the shoulder. Last 2, reach away. Tug it down. Last one. And then find a comfortable position for that right arm to lay down for a little bit. We're just going to hold this soft twist. One more breath. Reverse that arc with your top arm reaching up and over the head, rolling on your skull, coming back to your side. Put your bottom arm back underneath your head for support. Top arm can pressure down to the floor for a little balance, stability, and then mobilize your top leg hip. It could be a traditional circle like we normally do, maybe just a little less strict, a little less resistance internally. Just let it be a little softer. Bottom leg should still be pressing down to give you that stability though. 1 or 2 more cycles. Well, open your leg up like a gate. Inner thigh open to the long edge of your mat. Step your foot to the floor. So your knee is going to be pointed up and that inner thigh open to the side. And then just going to make some micro movements here with that hip. Adduct it, bring it closer to the floor, and then abduct it, move it away from the floor. That knee is the moving landmark, but notice the action happens here, right at that hip, inner thigh and outer thigh. Last couple. And you could be rolling the foot too. It doesn't have to stay flat. It could stay flat, but it doesn't have to. Should specify that. All right, let's try that side lying series now on the right side or the left, which just opposite whatever you just did. No specific way you need to transition, just get there. And I'll do my best to remember the sequence. For now, the bottom arm is just going to support your head. I like to keep mine straight for this part. Top hand, top hip. And first we do those little reaches with the pelvis. Letting the knee kind of scrape and slide, inner thigh slide, front to back. Bottom leg stays set. Let's do 2 more. And then settle into neutral stack of the ankles, knees, and hips. About 90 degrees of flexion in both the knee joint and the hip joint. Top hand, top hip. And then we're going to do those little shoulder reaches. So the elbow pointing up, shoulder blade moving away from the spine. Might be a little elevation in the shoulder as well. And then reach it back behind you, maybe shoulder height or beyond, as you try to pin your arm back down like a little chicken wing. Breathing organized the way that you like it best for ease, focus, and a little bit of relaxation perhaps, even though there's some action happening in the body. Hi, Tough. Are you inspecting? Last 1 or 2. That bottom arm now needs to move out in front of you, and your head will either be hovering or rolling depending on where your arm is at. Top arm is going to start to make that clock sweep. Overhead, rolling the chest slightly open, at least on these first few. And then back to that starting point to reach beyond the bottom hand. Let's hold this next one as we get to that rotation open. Bend your elbow and snuggle that arm down kind of behind you. It doesn't have to be low to the ground, but try to just squeeze and hug the shoulder blade down and also in. Retraction and depression. And then reach away on a diagonal, lengthen through the side, and once again pull back down. 3 more like that, reaching, and a little tug back and in. As little or as much rotation in the upper body, that thoracic spine, so that left shoulder might not quite, or that top arm might not quite hit the ground, and that's totally fine. Now somewhere in that range is your comfort zone. Just set the back of your arm on the ground when you find it. Arm straight, arm bent, doesn't matter. Might be kind of halfway open. And then we'll just ease into this upper T-spine twist. with your mind, connect to the sensation and the sound, even maybe, of your breath. Expansive and releasing. Reroute that top arm all the way around again. Reach it back out in front of you. Support your head with your bottom arm once again. Try to get your spine in a fairly upright line shape, like tabletop. Top hand is going to support you as you isolate your top leg hip in rotation or any other movements that appeal to you. Trying to ground the outside edge of that whole bottom leg to earn you a little bit more balance and stability. Last stop here on this side, I think anyway. Open up that top leg like a gate, inner thigh pointing forward. Tap your foot all the way down if possible. And then once your foot finds the mat, you're going to alternate between turning that knee back forward and then opening up that leg so your outer hip is contracting and the inner thigh is in a little bit of a stretch. Kind of feels like a clamshell movement, but with a grounded foot behind you. I really notice a big difference on this side with how this left hip can turn in and out. A lot less range of motion, which is interesting. It doesn't feel uncomfortable, it just feels a little less able. One or two more. Okay, so from here, all we need to do is press up and come to seated about in the middle of your space with your hands behind you and your feet about hips width, maybe a little bit wider, knees bent. Turn your fingertips out to the sides. And then you're going to find a little sliding action for your shoulder blades with straight arms. Alternating maybe every 3 or 4, just so we can go in both directions with that elevation, retraction, depression, and protraction. It feels like I'm flossing my shoulder blades this morning. And now find the stability of that shoulder girdle. So it is more of a depressed state with the chest drawing up, and really imprint your hands into the ground and then rise your hips. Oh, I forgot our bridge work. I guess this will take the place of our bridge work. Come all the way down, tap your seat. Now the right arm's going to reach either up or just forward as you turn your chest to the left, and once again try to push with the hips and come just up onto that left hand and lower down. Right hand spins back behind you or beside you. Reach the left arm away, turn your chest to the right, lift your hips. I'm going to try that again each way one more time. Left hand back. Rise the hips, crab on one arm. And then on this next one, we're going to make this into a transition. So as you take your right hand down and you twist open to the right, lift your hips, stand really strong in your left foot, and then pull your right leg underneath you, about underneath your hip. So it feels like a kneeling warrior pose. Walk your hands more towards that left heel, but out in front of you, kind of like a tabletop. And then you're just going to shift into this, letting that left knee glide forward and then pulling your right hip back. That bottom leg can be turned slightly on a diagonal, or it could stay kind of neutral. I like it open a little bit on a diagonal. Take a peek down at right knee and left heel. They should be approximately in the same line. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want to build this up a little bit like a kneeling warrior two. Bend into the left knee any amount. Take your left hand to your left knee or thigh, and then just turn your chest open a little bit towards the sky or just towards the short edge of your mat. And the right hand can stay planted for now. Right arm's going to reach forward as well. Come all the way up with your chest. Circle your right arm up and then let it land back behind you, just down beside your right hip. Stretch your left arm up like reverse warrior. Inhale one time. Exhale, left hand down or left elbow to the thigh, like side angle but on the knee. Sweep your bum back in space and take both hands down in front of this right leg. Stretch your left leg all the way out to the side for gate pose variation. Left hand will stay planted, and we're going to turn our chest open to the right now. Right arm can reach away either towards the ceiling or just straight out from the shoulder. Right hand back down. Now we're going to try to get back to where we were in that lounging position. So first, bend your left knee, crawl your heel a little closer to you, kind of like that kneeling warrior. Take your left hand away, so now you're just on the right hand, left foot, right knee. Slide your right leg back underneath you, step down, you're back to that revolved crab, and then push your seat to the ground. Give your right wrist a little love if it needs it. And then we're going to try it the other way. So left hand comes down behind you, turn your chest open to your left, right arm reaches away for a little counterbalance, press into your feet, lift your hips, and then start to drag this left leg underneath you, set it down underneath your hip, and you're in this kneeling warrior leg shape. Left hand can maybe move a little closer. Right hand, right hip, just the upper body turns to the right. Now get really engaged in the legs and through your core. Reach the left arm forward towards the right leg, then all the way up. Left hand slides down by the hip, right arm reaches up. Reverse warrior two on the knee. Extra breath in, and then baby side angle pose. Hinge your bum backwards. Plant your hands to the long edge of your mat and step your right foot all the way out to the side. Gate pose. The right hand will stay planted either on the palm or maybe even the fingertips. Turn chest to the left. Left hand comes back down. Rebend your right knee. Turn your toes to the short end of your mat. Take away your right hand. Tuck your back toes, lift your left knee, and kick it back under. Step down, revolved crab to your seat. And then we'll give the wrists a little bit of a break here. Just find our bum. Legs open pretty wide here, and then we'll just find a little simple windshield wiper pivot from the hips. Now, next time your knees start to point to the left, you're going to turn your right hip in a little bit more and sit up. So right hip is internally rotated, left leg is externally rotated, left fingertips are palm to the floor. Turn your chest towards the right and reach your right arm behind you. That's more of an open twist. And then we'll sweep the right arm across and turn the chest towards the left. Really reaching with that right shoulder blade especially. 3 more like that. Opening and turning. Last 2. When you finish off this last rotation, we're going to pivot the legs in the opposite direction. The left leg will be the trailing leg, internally rotating, and the right hip will be open, kind of like the butterfly. Right hand is your kickstand base, chest opening to the left with that left arm looking over your shoulder, and then turning towards that right leg, the front leg, reaching that left arm beyond as far as it'll go. And then just synchronize breath. I like to inhale open And exhale, reach, but I think it could also be interesting the other way. Yes, it is interesting the other way. Last two. Had to try it. Last one. And from this position, get both hands down to your mat, tuck your toes, and shift those legs now to tabletop. On the tabletop position, I'm just going to work the spine. So our traditional cat and cow, or any other variations that you like with side stretching or infinity rolling. Couple more rounds with breath. And then you can sit back on your heels because we are done. That's all I got for you today. It's a little longer than I had in mind, but I think it flowed pretty well, even though I forgot one thing. You won't even know what it is. So thanks for joining me, Joan. Hope that felt good this morning. For those of you that might catch this on the replay, let me know what you think. I might send this one to YouTube eventually, but I'm gonna put some older classes up there first, so because they might feel new again to you after not having access to them for a while. I'll be back in touch for tomorrow's class. We have our regular 10 o'clock flow. I'm not sure what we're gonna do yet, but I'll figure it out and let you know. Have a great weekend if I don't see you. Thanks for coming.